All right. So once again, my name is Erica Ray. I am the Public Information Manager for San Jose Fire Department and just want to thank you all for joining us tonight for our virtual Ask a Dispatcher event. So I am going to turn the floor over to our fire communications team in just a moment, but wanted to run through some quick logistics before we jump in. So once we move through our agenda and provide a basic overview of the position, you will be invited to ask questions to our dispatch team. And to do so, if you are tuning in via Zoom, we'll ask you to use the raise hand feature found by clicking the reactions button on your screen. You will then be called on by a host to ask your question live. Before you do so, please be sure to mute all other audio before speaking. If you're using multiple devices, it can cause audio feedback. If you have any trouble using the raise hand feature or locating it on your screen, feel free to type your question into the chat box and a host will raise that question to the panel for you. That goes for anyone tuning in via Facebook Live as well. I'll be monitoring the chat there, so feel free to type your question in and I will pose it to our dispatch team. So I am going to now welcome Supervising Public Safety Dispatcher Monica Alcantar-Kirk to get us started. Monica.
All right, thank you, Erica, and thank you for everyone tuning in to our Ask a Dispatcher event. Hoping to have a good time tonight, answering all of your questions and hearing what you want to know about the San Jose Fire Department dispatchers and what we do here in the city of San Jose. So I do first want to give some introductions here with our panel. We have Supervising PSD Jennifer Burnham with us tonight, Supervising PSD for Operations, and then we have Senior PSD Kristen Earhart. She's assigned to our Training and Quality Assurance Unit. And then we have PSRD, Scarlett Darmasay, in operations in our control room there as one of our control room dispatchers and call takers. And my name is Monica Alcantar-Kirk, supervising PSD for training, recruitment, and quality assurance for San Jose Fire Communications. All right, so first thing we want to do is introduce to you a little bit about what a San Jose Fire dispatcher is. And what you see in front of you is just a little glimpse into what San Jose Fire does, a really quick synopsis of our dispatchers here. We process these fire and medical calls for the city of San Jose. And what that encompasses is sometimes maybe life-saving instructions on those 911 emergency calls, but we're also dispatching the units to send to the different emergencies. So it isn't only taking the calls, it's corresponding with the apparatus that you see driving around, the engines and the trucks, and sending them to those different emergencies and communicating with them and giving them updates. And we're also considered essential workers, and as of January 2021, classified as first responders here in the state of California. So throughout the COVID pandemic, when a lot of people were maybe working from home, just like the rest of our public safety community, we were responding to work considered essential workers and now classified as first responders. Next, in order to apply to be part of our amazing team, we do have some minimum qualifications, and our recruitment is open now. You can apply, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the end of our question and answer session here. But in order to do this job, there are a few minimum qualifications, and you'll be surprised at the minimum qualifications that are required. What we really do is train you to be a San Jose Fire dispatcher, and the minimum qualifications would be completion of a high school diploma or GED equivalent, 3 years of customer contact experience, and that can be It can be anything where it gives you exposure to our community. We get all different types of callers from all parts of our community. And we're really looking for someone who has that personable element with all of our different types of callers. So it could be customer contact experience. You're a waiter or a waitress, or you're a barista at a coffee shop. It can be anything. So really describe what your customer contact is and how you're exposed to our community and dealing with all different types of our community. Also need to be a US citizen, and then able to type and use the computer is obviously desirable, because that is one of the main components of our job, is to be able to utilize the computer. Some ideal qualities that we might see in our dispatchers, or what we see in our dispatchers here now. I'm not going to read them off to you. You can see them on the screen, but we work in a very close environment, and we're doing a lot of things all at once, a lot of multitasking, major teamwork element that's needed in order to be successful and help and do what we need to do and execute all these different emergencies, handle radio traffic, and follow our policy and protocol, and help each other out at the same time. So it is nice to have some levity in the control room. Positive attitude is crucial. As a dispatcher, you're hearing maybe not the best things. You're hearing maybe someone's worst day of their life. And being able to put that into perspective and help each other out and understand and get the job done and do what you need to do to help this person is an amazing feeling. And there are a lot of different ideal qualities that a candidate could have that would help through that and be a part of our team. Next, we do have the different salary and benefits that would be included. As a trainee, you are considered a full-time employee. So that includes the benefits as an employee here with the San Jose Fire Department. You can see the salary listed there. It is a certain salary during training to start you off. And then once you're done with that training, at a certain time, you would promote to a public safety radio dispatcher. And that's the next figure that you do see there. We offer shift differential for swing shift and midnight shift. And there's an additional 5% pay on top of the figures that you see there that is non-pensionable pay. So it would be in addition to that salary figure that you see there. We do have bilingual pay. You can be certified in another language so that you can help our community by answering and dealing with phone calls in another language. We also have an interpreter service. So if you don't speak another language, that's okay, and we can still help all members of our community. The uniform allowance, tuition reimbursement is a big one, helping pay for school with the city and also with the union, and then benefits and retirement, and it's paid training. All those minimum requirements that you saw, that's it. That's all that you would need to get through the door to start our application process and be a part of our team. And then the rest, you pass the tests and you make it through the interviews, and you're here as a paid member of our team, and we will get you through the training and any additional certifications that are needed. Which brings me to our training program. I wanted to give you a little glimpse of what that would look like, and I'm going to introduce Kristen Earhart, our training coordinator, who will speak a little bit to that.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you again, everyone. So like Monica said, I'm the training coordinator, which means I do oversee our academies. So I'll talk to you about what our process looks like. So once you get hired, and it, like Monica mentioned, it is paid training. And so it starts out with a basic call taking academy. So that's 8 weeks in a classroom environment. And what that looks like is it will build the skills as a basic call taker. And so we start with building blocks. And so we begin with working for the city of San Jose, working for the fire department. We learn, you'll get certified as an emergency medical dispatcher, an EMD, and that allows you to provide instructions like CPR or bleeding control or deliver a baby over the phone. And then you also get a certification as an EFD, emergency fire dispatcher, where we can then provide instructions to get out of a burning building or help someone with some burn treatment. And so you'll get that certification, and then it's building blocks. Each week we're adding different elements. Each week of the Call Taking Academy, there's also weekly tests you need to progress through. So there's weekly tests that you need to pass to continue through the academy. You'll also do some practical application where you take simulated calls using our CAD, our computer aided dispatch system that we use to send people out or units out for service and create calls. And then there's also, we learn how to use our phone system. So all the different elements getting you ready to go into the control room to take live calls. So the Call Taking Academy has geography elements to it as well. And throughout the academy, you get different, you'll get feedback, weekly and daily feedback. And then again, weekly tests, and that all culminates in a week of finals at the end of the academy. And so preparing yourself to get that feedback, and it's kind of like going back to school to get ready to be a dispatcher, but it is all that paid training. So then once you pass that week of finals, you get to do a station ride along, which is pretty neat, get to see what they're doing out in the field. And then you get ready to go into the control room. So in the control room, then you go on to an on-the-job training. So you'll be with a communications training officer, a CTO. And what you're doing then is you're taking live 911 calls with your CTO, with your trainer, and you need to progress throughout that training. So they might be right next to you in the beginning, and then as you progress throughout your training, they're going to go ahead and sit away from you, and they'll be monitoring and helping you through that. And through that process, you get daily feedback from your CTO, weekly feedback from a control room senior, and you need to, again, continue to make progress. Once those 3 to 4 months are done with the CTO and call taking, you have about a month solo where you're a solo call taker working in the control room, taking live 911 calls without a trainer. And then you go back into our radio academy. And so our radio academy is going to be, again, going back into a classroom environment. It's a little bit shorter, so it's a 4-week academy, and that's where you'll learn how to dispatch calls for service, so sending the fire engines and trucks out to the different types of calls that you see out in San Jose. And so it's a classroom environment where you learn and use radio equipment. We have a trading radio channel that you practice on, and again, using that computer aided dispatch. Weekly tests in that academy as well, and then that culminates in a week of finals as well. Again, you go back into another CTO program where you'll be with a communications training officer again, and that one's going to be 4 to 5 months of training, again, making progress, daily feedback from your CTO, weekly feedback from your senior. And during the Call Taking Academy and the Radio Academy, your hours tend to be typically about that 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. But when you go into those CTO programs, so you're with your communications training officer, you're on their shift, their schedule. And so you might have different days off, different start times, and those might change through each phase. And a phase is about 4 weeks. So in that time, going back to the call taking, that 3 to 4 months, you might have 3 or 4 different trainers, 3 or 4 different shifts, 3 or 4 different start times and different days off. Same for the radio, different start times, different days off once you're on that on-the-job training portion. Once you pass those 4 to 5 months as a radio dispatcher, then you become a solo public safety radio dispatcher. And then you have 1 year probation past that. So it's about 2 years with training and probation until you're a signed off solo dispatcher, because it's such an important job. And so it's a really robust training program, but we found that it helps to make very successful, good dispatchers.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kristen. So I believe that is the end of our presentation. I do see some questions in the chat box, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share and I'll raise those questions to the panel. Let's see here. And feel free to raise your hand if you're on Zoom and have a question you'd like to ask. So I'll pose this question to our panel. How long is the application process? And this is from Elizabeth Luna. How long is the application process? And she has always been interested in becoming a dispatcher.
All right. I'll take that one. Thank you for the question, Elizabeth. In particular, this recruitment that we have open right now would be to hire for an academy at the end of June. So coming up in a few months here, we'll turn around this application process so then our hire date would be at the end of June. This hiring list may also be used for an additional recruitment that we hope to have by the end of the year, maybe in October as well. So it could vary in that time. We do try and get through the recruitment and application process as quickly as possible, but it is very important, and there's important elements that we need to vet through to get you through our process and to welcome you to our team. So for this particular one, applications would close February 28th, and then we would go ahead and have our hire last week or so of June. If you look on our website, it does list some key dates as part of this recruitment process and that potential start date. So it does list it when you apply on the city website.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
Next question is coming in from Kayla. Kayla asks, do you get 911 police dispatch calls mixed into the fire calls? Who would like to take that one?
Jen, over and ups, go for it.
You can, but a majority, if when someone calls 911 in the city of San Jose, the call goes directly to the police department. We work very closely with our friends in the police department, so they are the primary service answering point. We call them the PSAP, and they process the calls for police services. If the 911 call is requesting fire, medical, rescue, along that nature, then they transfer the caller to the fire department, where a fire dispatcher will then process the call. Every now and then a call might get through or misrouted where the caller is requesting some sort of a police response, and we are trained to create a basic police call for service, but a majority of the calls that we get will be for fire or medical related.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to switch. It looks like Tina is raising her hand, so I'm going to allow her to talk and she can pose her question directly to everyone. Just a moment here. All right, Tina,
Hi, this is Tina. I hope you can hear me. Quick question is, first, thank you very much for holding this. It's very informative. So I have heard that as new recruits, you are required to take a less desirable shift. So for example, if somebody could be on the midnight shift when actually they don't do so well at midnight. Is that true? Like within the hierarchy or seniority, you kind of newbies have to kind of take what you get?
Scarlett, I'm going to have you take this one here. And it also goes with Alyssa's question I see posted about the typical shifts that are worked. So go ahead, Scarlett, you can explain a little bit about that and how it is as a signed off dispatcher.
Okay, yeah, I'll take it as the newest person here. So like Kristen was saying, for Academy, it's Monday through Friday when you first start out. And then when you go with your trainer, you're on whatever shift they're on. We usually try to put trainees on each shift at least once so that you get a taste of each shift. So we have 3 shifts at San Jose Fire Dispatch. We have day shift, swing shift, which is like a midday, afternoon to early night, and then an overnight shift. So you'll hopefully get at least one trainer on each of those shifts to kind of feel out the times and different days off and things like that. And then once you're signed off to be by yourself as a dispatcher, then you get put into the what we call shift bid. So everybody picks their shift that they want to be on, their times of work, and their days off that they want. And those picks go in seniority order. Surprisingly enough, night shift is not usually open for bid by the new people. A lot of people like night shift at our agency. I don't know if it's like that at every agency, but so the shift that's been open the last year was swing shift. So that's my favorite time to work, which is like starting at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then you get off at 10:30 at night. So it just really depends on your what everybody else wants to do, and then you kind of just take whatever's left as the new person. And then as you move up, you know, after a few years, then you get more of a choice of what days off you want or what times you want to work.
Yeah, and there's an admin assignment element to it as well when you do get signed off, so that you have the opportunity to work on all the shifts, and then do get included in the shift bid and vacation bid as well.
Great, thank you. All right, Tina, I'm going to mute you unless you had any other follow-up questions.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you for your question. All right, so going back to the chat, this question is from Alan. Alan is asking where the call center is located.
Our call center is located in downtown San Jose. We're right here at the police department, near kind of the Santa Clara County Courthouse and the county building. Those are some familiar landmarks that people do know about on San Pedro and Hedden. So in downtown San Jose.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
This question is from Elisa. How many positions are we hiring for currently?
So the amount of positions that we are hiring for depends on how many vacancies we have at the time. So right now, we do have 4 different vacancies that we could fill, but we have pending retirements or different things that could change that. So by the time we do have that hiring date, there may be a difference in the amount of positions that we are hiring for. But we are looking to have, for us, what's considered a pretty good sized academy, and really do want to fill that out and get everyone in that we can.
Great. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like Alyssa has another question. I'm going to allow her to talk and she can ask it live. Alyssa, the floor is yours. I'm going to ask you to unmute because we can't hear you at the moment.
Okay, I figured it out. Okay.
We can hear you.
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. I was in the application process with Santa Cruz Dispatch Center, and I wanted to apply to San Jose Fire Department because I live in San Jose, you know. But I was also just wondering, because I know the Santa Cruz Dispatch Center is very small. It's just like a one room, very like maybe like 12 different spots, computer systems. I was wondering how large yours is compared. Like, do you have like a minimal amount of people, or is like a full force?
Yeah. Santa Cruz is amazing center and one of our comrades here in the Bay Area. But Jen, go for it. What do we have for our minimum staffing in our group?
Our shifts are comprised of, we have 6 people on duty at any given time. And that is 1 shift supervisor and 5 dispatchers. And so at least 6 people in the room, but we have the capacity to, there's 10 working positions with an option of another one. So we are fairly small since we're the secondary answering point in San Jose. So we are pretty small, but we do have additional workstations if we have to up staff for some reason, or there's an event where we have more people working. But a typical day is 6 people on shift in the control room.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I like the small aspect, or the aspect of a smaller work environment too. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for your question, Alyssa. All right, let's see here. So who would like to take this one? So what type of employment did you have prior to becoming a dispatcher?
I think we can go around real quick
Yeah.
for all of this. Jen, go ahead and start us off.
Well, before I became a dispatcher, I was a barista at Starbucks. I was working at Starbucks through college, and then I worked at a small nonprofit for the county before I got hired. And then when I got hired, I first started out on the police side. So I was a police call taker for 2 years before coming into the fire department.
Nice. Kristen, go for it.
So I actually found this on Craigslist, had no idea that I wanted to get into it, but love it. And before this, I did restaurant and retail. So I actually owned a champagne and dessert bar for a little while, and then worked in various different levels of retail, and then found this. So all of that customer contact and general public experience really helped with this job.
How about for you, Scarlett?
So I've been here 5.5 years. Before that, I was a 4th grade elementary school teacher.
Nice. All different backgrounds. And I came from no prior public safety experience. I used to be a wedding coordinator full-time. Got into this by accident, and I'm still here 14 plus years later. It's a good question.
Awesome. Thanks, Monica.
Yeah.
We have another question, anonymous attendee. Who is the union that represents fire dispatch?
Go for it, Scarlett.
Our union is MEF Local 101, who also is a union for a lot of San Jose City employees.
Thank you, Scarlett. Let's see.
And just one last thing on that previous question. We obviously never had any kind of dispatch training from our backgrounds, previous jobs and careers before this. You have a really good training that you're coming into for San Jose Fire, and they really just give you everything that you need. So don't feel like you need any kind of experience in dispatch. It's really not something that you need before applying. I had no dispatch experience at all, like never even thought about being a dispatcher until like a month before I applied, and my sister told me about the job. So just keep that in mind, even if maybe you know somebody who you think might be a good dispatcher, or I don't know, family, friend, anybody. It's not a previous experience kind of job. It's like we train you well on the job.
Great. I'm going to allow, Zachary has raised his hand. I'm going to allow him to talk now. Zachary.
Hi, yes. I actually had a question about more of the stress element of the job. I'm sure that as dispatchers, you've received calls that are, harrowing, definitely more in the scary territory. What are some good ways of maybe handling those stressful situations?
Great question, Zachary. Who would like to take that one, or maybe it's multiple people?
Kristen's part of our CISM team as well. I'll go ahead and have her start us off.
Thank you, and it is a good question. So everybody's going to handle their stress differently, but we definitely encourage people and recognize that we are a whole person and we are still human, and so we have lots of different ways to help cope with that. So Monica mentioned I am part of our critical incident stress management team and our peer-to-peer team, which are some resources to help people maybe work through if they took a difficult call or were exposed to maybe a tougher situation. And then also just we also have through the city employee assistance program where people can also reach out if they need some additional mental health resources for them and their families to help make you ready to be at work. And then of course it's that work-life balance, right? One of the things that I think this job really does offer is, yes, while you might take some stressful calls, when you're a dispatcher and you unplug and you go home for the day, there's no pending projects. There's no, there might be some emails you need to catch up on, but there's not this huge project that you're coming back to. And so you're able to go and enjoy your life, be with your family, go hiking, do things that, the things that make you happy and the things that you enjoy. And so we want people to have that element, that work-life balance, to help cope with those stressful calls.
Okay.
And just in the actual day-to-day job, we have scheduled breaks. We have a really cool like rooftop walking track that I like to go up to and just walk it off or listen to music, or I like to read up there. So there's other things, you know, kind of day-to-day that you can do as well.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zachary.
Can I add to it, Monica?
Of course.
The training program itself can be very stressful. The nice thing is that when you walk in the door on day one, you're getting paid to learn. It's a full-time job. It's just like being at school. And so you're being paid to learn, and people learn at all different paces and different ways to learn, especially as adults. And so during the training program, you have to sort of, you know, figure out how you're going to study and how you're going to fit in all the things to learn, but you also have to be kind to yourself. You know, it is a job, you're getting paid, but you also deserve your time off. So while, you know, you might worry on a Thursday about a Friday morning test, you still deserve to have your time off. And so you have to figure out how to work all the things in. But one of the great things about it is, like Scarlett was saying, you don't have to have any dispatch experience on day one, no experience, and you're getting paid. You're getting paid full-time to learn how to do the job. And it's a really great part of the job is how much training there is behind it, how much backup you have during the training program.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that addition, Jennifer. All right, let's see here. So I have Robert up next. I'm going to allow him to speak. Floor is yours, Robert. I'm just going to ask you to unmute.
Hello, how are you all doing? Thank you again for putting on this Q&A. I was just curious if at this time you guys are allowing sit-ins in the dispatcher room for those of us that want to get a view of how the day-to-day and shifts go on with the dispatchers.
So right now, when we have a process open, we don't allow any sit-alongs, but what we do include as part of our process is a virtual tour of our comm center, so that you do get an opportunity to see what it looks like and our positions. And also right now, during COVID times, we haven't allowed sit-alongs to come into the comm center, and hopefully we'll be able to do that soon and have more people come and see us, because it truly is such an amazing thing to see people multitasking and answering these 911 calls, dispatching these units for service, and actually seeing all the different computer screens that we have in front of us, the 5 different screens. They're depressing a pedal with their foot, they're typing, they're talking, they're listening. So many different things are happening, and really just to be immersed and seeing that happen is an amazing thing. And so right now, no sit-alongs just yet, but we do the second best so far, and that's a virtual sit-along or virtual tour, so that you do get an opportunity to see where you might be working. And we not only show the control room during that tour, we show the classroom environment, but also things like the break room, or we have something called the quiet room if you kind of need to de-stress and you need a quiet space. and we will go through all of those different locations during that virtual tour.
And just one more plug, we have a YouTube channel, YouTube/San Jose Fire Department. We created a really great Heroes Behind the Headset feature featuring our fire communications team last year to kind of give people a closer look at what it is like to be a dispatcher. We've got some great stories in there, so I do encourage you all to check that out. It's on our Facebook page as well if you're tuning in there. So just wanted to put that plug in. Subscribe and follow. All right. Let's see here. Oh, sure.
I was say thank you very much. Fortunately, I have to end this. I'm currently on shift right now. But thank you for your time, and good luck with your hiring process.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate your questions. Okay, so we have a few more here coming in. So from an anonymous attendee, actually it looks like we covered this one. How do you manage the stress from handling stressful calls? Megan asked, what's the most rewarding part of the job or call you've taken?
We can go through everyone here. Scarlett, go for it.
Much pressure. I don't have an answer yet.
Okay, but I know you have one. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the most rewarding part in general is just knowing that you've helped someone through their emergency. Most of the time when someone calls 911 for medical emergency, they need help. And so just being there to help someone on a day-to-day basis is probably what is the most common answer. But for me personally, I have, there's the one call that stands out, and for me it was the career maker. I had a call from a mom whose child suffered some sort of a seizure and cardiac event, and he was only 4 years old. And we did CPR over the phone. Firefighters arrived on scene, and they shocked him with an AED. They continued CPR in the ambulance. They got to the hospital. They continued CPR. And in the end, the little guy made it, and they found that he had a congenital heart defect. And 8 years later, he's 12 years old, and he's a healthy kid. So it's really stuff like that, you know, I could have ended my career 8 years ago and been perfectly happy with that one event, and still, you know, 25 years in, and that is the one call that really made the job worthwhile. So it just took the one phone call.
Thank you, Jennifer. That is an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Would anyone else like to answer that one?
I really like seeing my trainees and the people that I help and that I train be successful, and like watch them do really well in calls. And it's really cool to see, you know, a bunch of trainers helping a trainee, and then they finally graduate and, you know, become their own solo call taker and dispatcher. I think that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, the profession of 911 dispatcher has so many different levels of rewarding parts to it, because it's also not only the calls that you get to take and make an impact in someone's life, because we get to deliver babies and maybe hear a baby's first cry. We can hear it over the phone, but it's also rewarding, like Scarlett said, seeing all of your peers doing an amazing job and watching them and seeing them go through their career. Now that I've been here a while, and I've had the opportunity to be in the training unit and watching our academies go through and making such big impacts here at San Jose Fire with our comm center and changes and evolving and figuring out how to make it a better place for us here. So the camaraderie and the people that work here, everyone is very quick-witted and smart, and so it makes us laugh, and it's a fun environment to be in. So the rewarding part would be knowing that we are helping people, but it's also rewarding the people we get to know along the way, and the second family that we end up having here in the comm center.
Thank you so much, Monica. So we have several more questions. I'm going to move on from here. I hope I'm not cutting anyone off. Alan is asking, I understand it would be different every day, but do you have an estimate of an average number of calls a single dispatcher gets on a shift?
Jen, you want to talk about our call volume? Just in
Yeah,
general, we can narrow it down a little more.
Yeah, that's a tough one. The call volume differs from shift to shift and also from day to day. On day shift, one dispatcher might process, anywhere from 10 to 20 calls, depending on how busy it is. Swing shift and day shift are the busier shifts, so they're going to process more phone calls per dispatcher. On midnights, they're busy typically until about 2 a.m. and then it tends to slow down, but they have their busy shifts as well. So it's really hard to say like per dispatcher. And Monica, you might have to help me out on this. How many I think we had 94,000 calls last year in 2021. So if you divide that by, the 30 or so people that were working in the control room last year, you can do the math, but it's going to vary day by day and shift by shift.
Yeah. And how many on average, Jen, do we get on a day? I'm trying to think back on our daily activity logs. It's anywhere from
so per day, 700. Per day, we can field not just 911 phone calls, but even phone calls that come in on our business lines and phone calls with other agencies. It's upwards of, anywhere from 500 to on a slow day to over 700 phone calls on a busy 24-hour period. But like I said, that's business lines and 911 and 10-digit emergency lines. So we are a very busy center. There isn't a whole lot of downtime, but when there is downtime, you get to take a breather between phone calls, and the phone calls rotate between dispatchers. So you're not going to be taking back to back 911 calls. They are rotated amongst those who are on shift.
Thank you, Jennifer. Someone asked a really great question on Facebook Live. So this is Jason. He is saying, why should someone choose fire communications over police communications, or can you do both?
I only applied to San Jose Fire because I did not want to have to take police calls and handle police traffic. We're like one of the only agencies that I know of that is separate. Most 911 agencies are police, fire, and medical all together. So I really like how we're unique in that we handle fire and medical. Like Jen said, some of, we could randomly get a police call and we're trained to handle the basic stuff. But for the most part, we handle fire and medical calls. So I really like that part of it. And we're trained specifically as emergency fire dispatchers and emergency medical dispatchers. We have our certifications, and I really like that it's just specialized and focused on that. And then we just dispatch to the firefighters. So that's why I only applied to San Jose Fire.
And Jen, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I know for time wise, but you were a police dispatcher and you ended up over on the fire.
Yeah, back when I applied, you had to have some call taking experience to promote into the fire department. It's not the same way now. But police and fire dispatchers, the jobs are very different. They have their own application process and their own training, and we have ours. We're represented by the same union, but the jobs are very, very different. And, all dispatchers are saints for what people do on a day-to-day basis. But I think a police call taker who answers those 911 calls every day, I cannot give them enough kudos. They just, their job is very, very difficult. And like I said, when we get our phone calls, someone does need an ambulance, someone does have a medical emergency. And a lot of times, the police department, they answer the phone calls, the neighbor's dog is barking and their music is too loud and that kind of thing. And they're just saints. You can't give them enough kudos for the job that they do.
I think another really cool thing about San Jose Fire is that we're trained to be call takers and dispatchers. So like Kristen was explaining about the training academy, you have separate academies with San Jose Fire, one for call taking and one for dispatching. So by the time you're done with your almost year of training, you're trained to do both. And then once you're, done with training, you can alternate between call taking one day and then dispatching the next. So yesterday I was a 911 call taker. And then today when I went to work, I was a dispatcher. And so I like that variety.
Thank you, Scarlett. A question posed by Kayla in the chat. What are the different types of hourly shifts? For example, 8-hour, 12-hour, etc.
Go for it, Jen.
Right now we are on 8-hour shifts. So we work a 40-hour work week, and you might work, your Tuesdays and Wednesdays might be your day off. During training, you'll have weekends off. During the academy portion of training, you'll have weekends off. So right now we have 8-hour shifts, but our union allows for 8, 9, and 10-hour shifts. And right now we're on 8s just because we need to get more people hired and trained. And then eventually we will get back to a 9-hour shift, which allows for a 3-day weekend every other weekend.
Great, thank you. And then on Facebook Live, this is a very related question, so I'll pose it here, is also from Jason. Maybe you already answered this, but how does the training program impact your family and social life?
How does the training program impact your family and social life? So the initial training is like going back to school full time. You're doing a job full time. So it isn't a part-time thing. You're all in with that training. And as Kristen mentioned, you may be studying, you may be focusing on what you need to pass the training that week, which then brings you to the next week that you get more items added onto so that you can learn the job. So I know for me personally, when I'm studying, all my family and everyone else knew where all the fire station locations were, the phonetic alphabet. They were learning right along with me, and so it's so immersive. You're doing what you need to do to understand the job. And at first, it's a bunch of numbers and letters that you see on the screen, and then finally, something clicks and it makes sense, and you understand and you see what's happening. And that training journey is different for everybody. Everyone has different learning curves, and as adult learners, we interpret that information and we bring our own information to the table. So everyone's training experience is different, and how everyone learns is different. So can't necessarily blanket what my training experience will be like for you or how much you end up sharing, because for me, I know having someone else tell me about it or talking about it is going to help me learn, but maybe you like to look at flashcards yourself and do some more rote memorization. So it is what you make it. And this training program that we have here is for you. And it's to help you be successful here at San Jose Fire. So it is what you make it. You can decide to study more if you need to, or maybe you don't need to, so you don't have that additional study time. So it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it and how it'll affect that family life outside of that.
Thank you. And then also related, Elizabeth is asking, what time are the hours of the training?
Go ahead, Kristen.
So the academy hours do vary slightly for the most part. So the 8-week call taking academy and the 4-week radio academy are typically going to be between 8 o'clock and 4:30. So you have a half-hour unpaid lunch. But we do vary it a little bit. So we do have 1 week where we start a little bit earlier, and that kind of exposes you to the different types of shifts. And so we might start at 7 o'clock 1 week, and then we might start at noon. We have 1 week where we try to emulate the swing shift hours. So we'll start at noon and get off at 8:30 at night. But we do give out that schedule right day one of the academy, so that we do try to help you plan your life as best as you can. And so we do try to give you that schedule ahead of time. We try to give you your CTO schedule as much as possible ahead of time. So I'm just kind of going back to what Monica was talking about family and that question. It's about the communication too. And so we do have like a family and friends day where we do like a virtual kind of welcome for them. And so we let them know what you might be going through, what to expect. You're studying, you're being tested weekly, you're getting daily feedback, you're going to be tired, and that your shifts are going to be different. And yeah, we really do want you might work on Christmas, or you might work on your mom's birthday. And so it's all about that communication and how you manage that with your family. I had small children when I started, and so maybe we celebrated Christmas on a different day, but it's okay. That's part of being a dispatcher, and it's all about, and how, like Monica said, what you make it. But just to circle back, so typical hours in the academy, Monday through Friday, about that 8 to 4:30, but there might be some slight adjustments for a week or two.
Perfect. Thank you, Kristen. We had a question, and probably touch on this briefly because I think we went through it in the presentation, but Sheena is asking on Facebook Live, what skills and abilities are needed when applying?
So we do have our minimum qualifications, and you can see those listed on our website, but just in general, the 18 years of age, a GED or high school diploma, and then the 3 years of customer contact experience would be those minimum qualifications. But you need to have a passion for the job, and maybe you think you have a passion for the job, or you find that passion once you start because you don't know what you're getting into. And I think it boils down to that, because you have that grit to want to help and take these calls and work the hours and the shifts and put in the work. And then that experience from going through all of that and hearing the outcomes and knowing what you're doing to help your community, but also the line personnel on the other end of the radio, that element of it, the passion, is really going to be a quality that you're going to need. It isn't just a typical career or a typical job. It is a profession, it is a career, and you need to have the passion for it.
Great, thank you, Monica. Robert has raised his hand. I'm going to allow him to speak now. Robert, the floor is yours. Feel free to unmute.
Well, again, it's probably just a rip off of more of what was just covered. But then you guys are going through your application process. What are the things that you look for most into a potential applicant, and what are things that we should be doing from here on, and potentially doing it? Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, so Robert, we're using our dispatcher ears here to filter through the feedback there, but I think we got it. You're trying to figure out what we're looking for in a potential applicant and what you can do to prepare for this position. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, in a potential applicant, what we are looking for is someone who can deal with the community and multitask and learn all of our policies and procedures, and kind of be comfortable in the gray areas, because we have some things that might be black and white, but you're dealing with an unknown type of emergency, and you need to know which way to go and have some really quick, good decision making. We need someone that can have those qualities and can display that for us, and have that type of performance when they are managing and handling those calls. And then what you can do to prepare. for this position is take a look on our webpage and on the city application site, and it will give you a heads up of different things that are going to be happening in this recruitment. Different elements could be that you'll see listed on there might be a critical test. Look it up, see what a critical test is, do your homework. There's going to be interviews. Find out how to conduct yourself in a panel interview. There's going to be multiple interviews. Make sure you're prepared for that and that you brag on yourself and that you tell us everything that you need to, because you need to display to us that you're the best quality candidate for these vacancies that we want to fill. And do yourself the favor by preparing for each one of those steps. We let you know what those steps are, and it's up to you to go ahead and show us. And we want to help you through that, but you got to make sure you're doing your homework first on the other side. Learn about the city, learn more about us, find more about us. That can really help shine through, and we can see that as you're going through that application process.
Great tips there. Robert, I'll ask you to unmute in case you had anything else to say. I had put you on mute because we're getting some feedback there. Okay, I think we've answered your question then. I will move on. So make sure. Let's see. So what would you tell someone brand new to this profession about the training and what it takes?
Scarlett or Kristen, go for it.
I'll go first, but I think Scarlett should also add to it. So I like to tell people that when I went through training, it was harder than college in some ways for me. It was, I didn't have a lot of public safety in my family. I did my research, I prepared and researched going into the interviews and about the job, but I really didn't, it was like learning a whole new language. All these, like Monica mentioned, the different letters, numbers, codes, different protocols, things like that. It was a whole other language to me. And so knowing that it is going to be tough, you are going to have to study. And Monica said every training journey is different, and every learning style is different. And so knowing how to best help yourself as a learner, be prepared to work hard. I like to remind all of our trainees, right? Be humble, be open to feedback. Know that feedback is there to help you. If I'm not performing CPR correctly, I would like to know before I get on a live 911 call. And so know and be open to that feedback and know that it's never intending to make you feel bad. It's really there to help you. And so really check in with yourself. Are you ready to take and receive daily feedback and apply it and hear how you're doing for a year? Because it is an important job and you do need to know how to best do the job. So just be flexible, be humble, and be prepared to go back to school.
Awesome. So this will be our last question. Also from Jason on Facebook Live. Do you do ride-alongs with fire and police to get an idea of what they are doing around or on the ground?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. Incorporated into our academy is ride-alongs with our San Jose fire units. So at the end of our call taking academy and also at the end of the radio academy. And it can also be a performance target later on in your career yearly so that you can keep fresh and get some more questions and better idea of the bigger picture and what you're doing. And ride-alongs are very important. And for those of you that don't know what ride-alongs are, we have sit-alongs where people can come and visit the comm center, but ride-alongs are where you can go with a fire engine and its crew and ride along on some of their calls and visit the firehouse and interact that way.
All right. Thank you all so much, all of our panelists. Really great answers to these questions. And that concludes our virtual Ask a Dispatcher event tonight. Want to thank everyone who joined us on Zoom and Facebook Live. Thank you for all your engaging questions. We hope you found this useful hour of your time, and just want to remind everyone that information about our current recruitment is available online at www.sjfd911.org. Also remember, the deadline currently to apply is February 28th, so don't delay, get your application in. And we will share a link to this recording on our Facebook page and website in case you have a desire to watch it again or share it with friends and family. So thank you all and have a great evening.